So a few days ago, the good folks over at Bogren Digital messaged me and said, hey man, we have some very cool new Ampknob plugins coming out. You think you could write a rocking track with them? And I thought, challenge accepted. And literally within 30 seconds of plugging in, it inspired this. You'll hear more of that a little later in the video. Howdy guys and girls, welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, it is really awesome to have you come and hang out with us today. So when someone says to me, you want to try a one knob amp? I'm kind of skeptical. Frankly, it scares the bejesus out of me because look, here's the deal. I have been building and modifying amps for a good few years now, and I am very particular about my amp tones, especially my Marshall amp tones. They are like the sacred holy ground, dude. Man, you can't mess with them, right? I need multiple tone knobs and switches which help me to mold my perfect tone. The more the merrier. Which is why my custom 69 Plexi actually looks like the console from the Millennium Falcon. But I'm up for a challenge, so when the folks at Bogren told me that they were releasing Ampknob plugins that were based on Marshall amps, well, that got me totally wide-eyed and bushy-tailed because I really love my Marshall amp tones. The Ampknob 75, 800 and 410 JVH are the latest and greatest from the good folks over at Bogren. They are a collection of 3 plugins covering the 70s, 80s and the modern era Marshall amps. You guys can already guess which Marshall amps they're based on, and I'll talk more about that in just a second. And I'll tell you now, you remember I said that it took me 30 seconds to come up with that riff? I wasn't blowing smoke, man. I literally loaded them up onto my Mac, started up Logic, plugged in my guitar, and boom! That tone, man, oh man, it really did impress me right out of the gate. And it's no surprise if you think about it. Look, the reality is there are a million Marshall and Marshall-inspired plugins out there. Everyone and their mothers make them. Even my mum makes one. Okay, maybe she doesn't, but anywho, you kind of get my point, right? The thing that makes a Marshall plugin stand out, in my humble opinion, is the experience of the people behind its development. And in this case, we have the ears and experience of Jens Bogren, metal producer extraordinaire for the last 20 plus years. He's produced some of the heaviest and much loved metal bands out there. The list is too long to share here, but it includes Trivium, Behemoth, Opeth, and even guys like James LaBrie and Marty Friedman. Pretty freaking cool, right? And with that comes the experience of dialing in the perfect guitar tone. Imagine sitting there with a guitar god like Marty Friedman and nailing the perfect tone for him so that he can just perform. And that's what you get with the Ampknob. It is all those years worth of listening, tweaking, adjusting, all condensed into a plugin which is voiced to sit perfectly in a mix. It is EQ'd to the perfection that he and his team are listening out for when they are dialing in Marty Friedman's amps in the studio. That's pretty special, I think. And this was a total penny drop moment for me because, to be honest, I've known about the Ampknob plugins for quite a while now. Trivium have a signature set of them, but I hadn't really delved into them. I'm so glad that I have now though, because they sound outstanding. But this makes complete sense. It's so obvious that a top producer would basically dial in a plugin to absolute perfection that they're looking for in the studio. And I totally appreciate that everyone has their own version of perfect in their minds. I certainly do. So if you did want to tweak the tone, then you can always reach for your favorite EQ plugin or maybe a different impulse response. But I set myself the challenge of using just the Ampknob plugins to record an entire track. No extra EQ, delay or reverb, just the sounds that the plugin could deliver. Taking away delay is kind of like tying one of my hands behind my back and then saying, play something amazing, Jay. Kind of destabilizes me, man. But I was up for the challenge and man, it was so much fun to do. And in a couple of minutes, you'll hear what I actually came up with. It was pretty special. Let's talk about the amps in the collection first though. The 75 is based on a mid-70s metal face Marshall Super Lead. Although the graphics have a very punk-like vibe, this does everything from classic rock to high gain madness. It has two channels. Channel 1 covers your classic Plexi tones. Channel 2 jumps the channels and takes it up a considerable notch to a very Jose modded Marshall-like overdrive tone. It's pretty damn cool. This is the first plugin I checked out, and there it was. It is delicious to play because it has that Marshall bark and growl. It's like an angry wolf that is letting you know that it has teeth. The tone is lovely and full, and it has that classic trebly response that Marshalls are known for. It has two built-in cabs, a modern and a vintage, with their IRDX technology as well, which makes the impulse response even more natural and real sounding. And you can load your own impulse responses as well if you'd like. I didn't feel the need to do that because the included modern and vintage cabs sound incredibly good. It also has a built-in reverb which sounds really lush and fantastic. It's a really good reverb. I used this one for the rhythm guitars predominantly, but I could have easily used it for the lead tones with the wick turned up. The only reason I didn't is because one of the other plugins has a delay built in. Yeah, oh delay, I love you so much. But before I tell you all about that one, let's check out some tones from the 75. Hey, if you're digging this challenge, then do me a tiny favor and make sure that you smash the subscribe button and hit the bell as well, as I'll be bringing you more tone-seeking videos really soon. Thanks so much. The 800 is exactly what it says on the tin. Marshall JCM 800 in a box, or should I say in a plugin. This one is called the BADBOY, and for a very, very good reason. It has so much gain and punch. Wind up the volume knob to max and you're in high gain heaven. Plus it has a boost pedal switch as well, which my guess would be is based on a Boss SD1. And you also get an FX section where you have reverb and delay. Yay! There's my delay. The delay is really, really nice as well. I found it to sound warm and have an analog flavor to it, so it has a ton of character. Together with that lush reverb, you can dial in some really ambient sounds. Kind of reminds me of my Keeley Halo pedal, which is one of my favorite delay pedals. Like I said, the amp tone is pure 800. It has that 2203 JCM 800 pedal to the metal kind of bite and growl and fatness that the amp is so loved for. It's thick and full, but it still has a lot of presence. When you engage the pedal, it gives it even more high-end push, which really cuts through the mix. I use this one for the intro of the track with the delays going on and that ping pong thing, which is totally, totally cool, and all of my lead tones as well, because, well, delay. You have a third cab IR built into this one as well, which is called lead, and which has a little bit more mid-range to bring it out in the mix. Check this out. Pretty cool how these plugins handle those palm mutes and the chugga chugga, right? And finally we have the 410 JVH, which is based on the Marshall JVM 410 head. This one has the addition of 4 different modes, so you can do everything from pristine cleans to crunch to overdrive to fully saturated lead tones. It has a boost switch and a reverb built in as well, and also the modern and the vintage cabs. What I loved about this one is that it has that almost brittle sound to it that is signature of the JVM amps. It's almost as if Marshall built in an ice pick into the amp. I instantly noticed it when I played it, but it sounds very, very cool. I think you'll dig this one as well. All three plugins have a built-in tuner and an adjustable noise gate. The standalone version has a very handy metronome and a record function where you can capture your ideas without the need to start a DAW. I think that's a really cool touch they put onto the plugins. Now I know you're wondering how challenging this was to do, right? Well, to be honest, I thought it would be pretty tricky because one knob. But Bogren made it really easy for me because all of the plugins sounded absolutely amazing right out of the box. I mean, they are dialed in so well that I didn't feel the need to mess with the tone in any way by adding any EQ. The rhythm tones were just pure, unadulterated Marshall goodness. That sound and that bite and that response that I'm used to from playing Marshall amps and Marshall style amps was right there, which is another thing. These plugins feel fantastic to play. They feel really good under the fingers. I felt connected to the amps and it was translating all of the quirks and habits of my playing. The tones are ones that I would happily play all day long. For my lead tones on the track that you'll hear in just a second, I used a couple of my signature impulse responses just to see how they would work with the plugin. And I gotta say, they sounded totally amazing. They shaped the tone just a little bit to bring out the mid-range just the way I like it, so that the lead parts stood out a little bit more. One of the wonderful things was that having just the volume or gain control and a couple of switches took away all of the option paralysis. You plug in, you set your gain level, you have your tone, and go. That easy. And it really did turn out to be like that. That was kind of mind-blowing. I loved the addition of the delay in the 800 plugin. I would have loved that on the others, but I found a hack. Yeah. So on the clean guitar part, I used the 410 plugin on the first channel and ran it ultra clean. Then I duplicated the track and added the 800 plugin with the volume, which on an 800 is the gain control, very low so that it was a clean sound, and then set the level on the delay very high so that it would be the predominant sound in that amp. And then I mixed the 800 track into the 410 track, and voila, I have a super lush delay and ambient reverb to boot on my clean tones. This is a great way to do it, and it's an easy way to do it because there are no phasing issues between the tracks as they're carbon copies of each other. I'm impressed. Truth be told, I can be a very difficult person to impress. Great work, Jens and the whole team at Bogren. Huge shout out and thanks to them for sending me these amazing plugins. So, will you take on the Ampknob challenge? Let me know in the comments below. Head over to the Bogren website and download the demos for yourselves today and check them out. I think you'll really dig them. If you do take the challenge, then I would love to see what you come up with. So tag my YouTube channel, which is at JGuitar, and the Bogren Digital channel as well, which is at Bogren Digital. I would love to see the riffs and the licks that these inspire in you. If you enjoyed this one, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell, also a like, share and comment as well. It is so much appreciated. Alrighty folks, ain't nothing to it but to rock some tunes now. Time for the full track. This one is heavy and cool and groovy and slick. It is pure Marshall goodness and just with a single knob. Amazing. I'm gonna go play these some more because they are really cool. Enjoy rocking out and see you really soon with another video. Bye for now.